So welcome to the DNP Q&A session. My name is Dr. Kara Jefferson, and I am the DNP Program Director here at Frontier Nursing University. So welcome. I am joined today with one of my faculty, Dr. Kimberly Couch.
Good morning, everyone.
So we just wanted to say hello. So let's just dive right in, get started. You may notice me looking over here for a minute. That's because that is actually where the slides are on my screen so that I can better be able to do all of the things that I need to do with you. But a good place to start is our current mission statement. And right now, as you can see, it is right here written on the screen. But our current mission is to provide accessible nurse midwifery and nurse practitioner education that integrates the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we transform healthcare by preparing innovative, ethical, compassionate, and entrepreneurial leaders to work with people with an emphasis on rural and underserved communities. So there are a couple of things out of that mission statement that every single time we do these presentations or we have our DNP students come to DNP Bound that they take away from that. And those are the innovative, ethical, compassionate. Those things are who you guys are, and you're bringing your experience from whatever community you're in into the DNP program. And that's what makes us so much richer because of the experiences that you already bring in. You're able to assimilate that into your cohort learning and achieve an even greater level of learning. And so today we will cover why come to Frontier University? There are a whole bunch of universities out here that you could get your DNP from, but why should you come to Frontier? We'll also talk about why you should get a DNP degree at all, because there are so many other options for you out there. So why do you even want a DNP? We're going to go over briefly the programs of study, the admissions criteria, a little bit about the DNP project, because that seems to be where most of the questions are. And then we'll talk about how to get started and a little bit on what we do in the DNP program to get you started on that journey. So, Frontier is a distance education program. The way in which our program works is all of your courses are conducted online. For some courses, there are synchronous, meaning you have to show up to a live session at that specified date and time for the session. But the majority of our sessions are asynchronous, which means that you are able to work at your own pace, in the comfort of your own home, on your couch, wherever that needs to be at the time of day that it works best for you. If we do happen to have some kind of live sessions, we do ensure that all of those live sessions are recorded so that you are able to come back and listen to those on your own time, a time that's convenient for you. It is also important to note that we have something called the culture of caring here at Frontier. And that just means that because an example of that would be is because you're up and you're working at 3 a.m. your time does not necessarily mean that the faculty and the staff and everybody else who's working with you is up at that same amount of time. So part of the culture of caring is being respectful of other people and their roles, being civil with those people, being professional in all of our communications, because as an online program, our greatest asset is our ability to communicate and communicate well. So just keep that in mind as we go through this program. And then I think I've already mentioned this before, but we have all of our DNP students come to our Versailles, Kentucky campus at the beginning of the program for our orientation. The orientation is a 2.5 day period. If you are a postmaster student or you've been out of Frontier for you've been to Frontier for a prior degree in the last 2 years, if you're outside of that window, you come on campus. If you've been at Frontier in the last 2 years, then you could potentially request the option to come to our virtual DNP bound session. But again, like I said, this is dependent on whether or not you did another degree at Frontier Nursing University, not a different school. Here are some pictures of our Versailles campus. I am not going to go into all of the details on this, but these are the buildings that our students come into when they come to campus most often. So on the far right at the top, we have our Welcome Center, which is where you come, you get checked in. On the left side at the top, that is our dining hall because it's critically important. It's where we tend to form a lot of our relationships because mealtime is one of the best times to share our experiences with one another, share a little bit about who we are, what we do, and form other connections with students. And then the other pictures are just of the other grounds on campus. So, a little bit more about Frontier. We have gotten several awards or several achievements over the years. We know how to do distance education, and we know how to do distance education well because we have been doing it for at least 100 years, right? And so our students and our alumni, they represent all states in the United States. In our DNP program, we have even had some DNP students choose to do their DNP projects internationally because that means something to them or they spend a great deal of time outside of the United States, but we're still practicing care that is in alignment with all of the guidelines that we have out there. We have had over 10,000 graduates, and our history of education experience speaks for itself. But we've also won several awards. So we have earned we are a 7-time winner of the Insight into Diversity Higher, it's called the HEAT Award, the Higher Education Excellence in Diversity Award. We have been recognized for 4 consecutive years as a great college to work for. We were named an academic honoree in the Sigma, because it's not, we now refer to it as Sigma instead of Sigma Theta Tau, but the Sigma Healthy Work Environment Award. And we also received the 2023 AACN Award for Inclusive Excellence, Belonging, and Sustainability in Nursing. So, all of these things are all things that we're really proud of, but it's not just the awards that make us who we are. It is actually the community and the people and the relationships that we're forming with all of you. As I just said about relationships, the way in which we try to cultivate some of these relationships is with our many different departments and the ways in which we offer support to students. So there are layers and layers of support from faculty to staff and people you will never see who are behind the scenes working on things for you at all times. But we have several things. We have online student groups, we call these our SIGs, or our student interest groups, where students can join throughout your studies to connect with like minded individuals as a place of support. These are generally, they have a faculty in charge of these groups, but the group is not run by the faculty. Students drive the conversations in many of these groups. We have and within that, you can find student to student support. But within your coursework, our faculty are always encouraging students to form connections with other students because it makes your learning experience that much richer because you're experiencing it from multi-dimensional views, not just the view of your own reality. We have faculty mentors who are available to mentor students in whatever topic that students may have an interest in. We can pair you up with faculty. We have our financial aid advisors who are here to give you all of the latest and greatest, most up to date information about financial aid. What are your options? What do you need? Because what you need can be very different from what somebody else needs. So we make sure that we're providing enough support so that you feel like you are coming to us with the appropriate questions and we're able to give you the answers that you deserve. We have an amazing group of librarians. I can smile and talk about this all day. And if you talk to any of our current DNP students, they will tell you how invaluable the librarians are at helping them come up with the literature for their DNP project, but even before the project begins, you will have several encounters with the librarian so that we make sure that you know how to. Uh-oh, did my screen go out? It's back. Um, so that they can make sure that you know how to search the library to look at all of the different things. And then we also have credentialing coordinators, and our credentialing coordinators are the people who credential your site for your actual DNP project. So whether you're employed at your site or volunteering at another site, they provide the level of support so that we can make sure that you can actually get into the site. You have met all the requirements, both for Frontier as well as the site. And then, of course, IT, because all of us would struggle a little bit if we did not have IT to support us because we're all human and technology changes at a rapid pace. And so we have an amazing online IT department. So, why should you get a DNP? You have options. You can go, you can get a PhD, you can go, you can get a doctorate of midwifery, you can go, you can get an educational doctorate. So, why the DNP? Well, for most of us, if you're even considering a DNP, it is because you actually love clinical practice as an APRN, advanced practice registered nurse. You love your job as a midwife. You love your job as a psych nurse practitioner, a family nurse practitioner, a women's health nurse practitioner, whatever kind of nurse practitioner you are. You love your job so much that you have found that there are significant gaps within your site and you want to be the expert and you want to be the person who knows how to take those things and lead a team into improving care for your patients. That is why you want to get your DNP because not only does it allow you to be the clinical practice scholar and have that expertise on a certain subject matter, it also allows you to be able to teach if you want to do in the future. Whereas if you just got your educational doctorate, you're limited to teaching. If you're a midwife, sure, you can go and you can get your doctorate of midwifery, but it's so focused on midwifery, you're missing all the other rich experiences that you can get from learning from the other people who are also going into these leadership and sometimes roles in health policy. So you really, the focus of your DNP is more extensive. PhD is more research focused. And while you are in your DNP, you do look at literature. You are not doing research, meaning we're not going to have a control group and an experimental group that we're looking at. We're looking at the DNP as an all encompassing thing that is viewing all facets of healthcare and the human experience with the healthcare environment for you to become an expert at. We also know that quality improvement takes a long time for what we see in textbooks to become a reality. And so we want you to be able to advance this much quicker than the rate at which we currently have. So it's real world implementation. It is a terminal degree, and it just helps us to um, get you where you need to go. There's some feedback that I'm getting. Maybe somebody's unmuted, not sure. So, what are the admissions criteria? How do you get into our DNP? So, fairly simple, right? In order to get into our DNP program, you must have a master's degree, whether that is a Master of Science in Nursing, a Master's in Nursing, um, just a master's in nursing or a related field. You have to have at least a 3.0 grade point average. Your license must not have any encumbrances. You must be licensed in one of the states in the United States. You do not have to be licensed in all states in the United States. That would be asking a lot because none of our faculty are licensed in all of those things. But you have to have an active license, not just as an RN, but you also have to have certification as an advanced practice registered nurse. And then, of course, you have to be able to successfully pass a background check. So we have um, different programs of study. We have a full-time program of study and we have a part-time program of study for our DNP program. Our DNP program is a total of 30 credit hours worth of work. And we're looking right here at the postmaster's program. It's the program of study isn't completely written up here, but the way that it's outlined, full-time postmaster's program of study is 18 months. And what this means is that you would complete your entire degree in 18 months. But this program ideally is set up for the clinician who is not working a 40-hour plus work week because we're asking you to do schoolwork in addition to your regular job, especially when you get into the DNP program. So we generally encourage our students to try it out by starting off with a part-time plan of study. But I digress and I'll go into that a little bit later. At Frontier, our student terms where you're actively engaged in your coursework are 11-week terms, and then you have a 2-week break in between each term where we encourage you to get rest, to rejuvenate, to reconnect with all of the things that you love so that you can get re excited about your educational journey again. And in each of the programs of study, you begin your DNP project. That is left at the end of the program. It is not like you take a didactic class and a project course at the same time. All of the didactic courses build into our project courses. So here's a list of our didactic courses. Um, there are 6 DNP didactic courses. They're listed here: nurses educator, fundamentals of business and finance and advancing healthcare, population health, which used to be known as our epidemiology and biostatistics course, ethics and health policy, advanced evidence-based practice in nursing, and then also leadership and organizational dynamics. So every single thing that you learn in these courses, you will use again once you get to the DNP project courses, which are listed right here. Um, there are 4 courses in the project. And even though we break these up and we say that there are 4 courses, we like to think of them as one giant course because the project is really a year-long thing. You have to start by getting prepared for the project, getting the appropriate approvals, and then we plan it and we implement it and we disseminate each of those things. You'll notice that there's a little bit of information here on the slides about our hourly requirements for the project. And what this means is once you get into the DNP project, you are the project manager. And the only way that you can be a successful project manager is if you understand what it means to see all of the things that are actively going around. You would not be an effective project manager if everybody else is doing all the work and you don't even see what things are going well, what things need improvement, where's the system getting bottlenecked. That is why it's important that you're on site. So in our planning course, we ask that you're there around 20, 30 hours per week. That can look however you need it to look, depending upon your site. In implementation, we have hours listed here as 26 to 30, but the reality is you need to be on site 3 days, bare minimum, 3 days per week, actively implementing your project with your staff. Um, and your other providers. And then in dissemination, even though we say that you may need to be there 11 to 20 hours per week, your actual on site requirement is all geared toward you actually putting the results of your project together and then also making sure that you are able to coordinate an event where you get people to show up to your project. Because at the end of the day, you're not doing this quality improvement project for me or Dr. Couch or any of the other faculty. You're doing it for your patients. You're doing it because some aspect of their care has to be improved, and you want to give that gift back to the people who've worked hard with you and share the results with your community because that's what it's all about. It's all about population health. So that was a lot. covered a lot of information in a little bit of time. But to summarize real quick, once you get accepted, so first you do an application into our program. After you get accepted into our program, we require that you do a DNP bound experience for the program. The DNP bound experience for the program is a 2.5 day online experience. If you are a postmaster student who has never attended Frontier, or you've attended Frontier before, but it's over 2 years ago. If you have attended Frontier in the last 2 years, you could be eligible for our 1 day virtual bound experience because you're already familiar with some of our processes that we already do internally. The beginning of our program, you take 6 very practice oriented didactic courses, and then you go into our 4 project courses that are one each term. So you don't take more than 2 project courses in a term, you take 1 course per term. Um, our upcoming application deadlines are listed here. The next one is April 2nd, and you would start that coursework July 7th, so right after the 4th of July holiday. And then the next application deadline after that would be June 25th, and you would start your coursework October the 6th. It's also important, and I don't think that I said this before, but we have a rolling admissions process, which means you actually want to complete your application and get your application materials in as early as you can work on them so that your file can be reviewed. It just gives you more time to organize yourself. But this is also where I put in my shameless, not so shameless plug that you are applying for a terminal degree program. So you want to put your best foot forward, meaning I want you to take the time and review your resume or your CV and make sure that you do not have misspelled words. I want you to look at that and make sure that you are showing us everything that there is to really know who you are. Because there are a lot of times we don't put those things because for some of us, they're just so commonplace. But if you've held any kind of leadership role, if you've published or presented at any conference, all of those things need to go on there. If you're a leader in a community service organization, or you've precepted students, add all of that to your resume. Because remember, we are looking for the top 2% because only 2% of nurses or even advanced practice nurses have a terminal degree. So please, please, please read over everything you submit. You will be required to write 2 application essays for this. So you want to proofread that. You want to use the spell check feature on whatever word processing platform you're using for the to complete your application. The thing that I don't want you to do is use AI to actually write your application. We want this to be from the heart. We want it to be meaningful to you. So just keep that in mind as you're going through this process. We will require that you submit a professional reference. The best person to give you this reference is someone who has likely been a supervisor for you at some point in your career. Current supervisor is best, but we also understand that sometimes people are transitioning roles at this time. But the person who knows you the best, who can speak to your ability to do the program and your work ethic, is generally somebody who you have worked for, not necessarily your best friend who is going to say all the most wonderful things about you. We already know that you're wonderful outside of this. We need somebody who can speak to some of your other qualities. And then, of course, we're going to request your transcripts because that is just standard with any admissions process. It's also important to note that Frontier has some of the lowest graduate tuition across the country for our DNP program. Each credit hour is $685. And so we know that especially those of you who are coming from rural and underserved areas, it is important for us that we maintain a financial system that this is affordable for you and you can still also reach your goals. So, what do we need to do next? Just apply. It's just that simple. And so the way in which you apply is you go through our standard admissions process. If you are external to, actually, everybody is now applying through the standard admissions process. So you just go on the portal page, hit DNP, go through the application, apply, and voila, you are done. Once you have finished your application, we send it out internally for our review system, and then we let you know how that goes. So I am going to stop for a minute to answer any questions. Dr. Couch, are there any questions?
No questions in the chat box. I did want you to clarify though, Cara, and I'm not sure I missed it, but DNP experience is actually on campus, not virtual for 2.5 days. If you are a current student and you're or a recent student and have gone through DNP bound, then it becomes virtual for a day.
No. If anyone has attended Frontier for their MSN, any MSN program, PGC program, they qualify to submit I don't want to say application, but it is a form. They submit a form, and in the form, you explain that you have been to Frontier in the past 2 years. And then there's a written section where you can write about what it is that you already know. All of those forms come to me. I pull up your old form, like to see when you last came to Frontier. So I have all of that information in front of me. And then I approve whether or not someone is eligible for virtual bound or if they must attend the 2.5 day session. So thank you for asking that question and getting me to clarify.
Thank you.
So if no other questions, we'll move on to
May
the
I
next.
questions?
Yes.
Are the dates available for the in-person visits for the July session?
The all of our Frontier bound or our DNP bound dates are already published on the Frontier calendar. They should be on the website, because that plays a role, because we know like summertime people are generally trying to, they may have something planned with their kids or with their families or all that, so we do try to publish those in advance.
Oh, thank you. Someone just responded. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, well, we can always come back to questions, so let's talk a little bit about the actual DNP and the project and what we do with you. So it is very important. What I have found is that the idea of a project gives a lot of people some kind of anxiety or some kind of angst. And so we have tried to make that process as smooth as possible, meaning we don't want you to sit over here and fret about all the things that could go wrong or may go wrong. And that is why once you get into that first project course, of which Dr. Couch is course coordinator, we actually assign you a project faculty who will meet with you for at least 30 minutes to talk through some of the nuances of the project and answer any questions that you may have. We think that it's very important that you be able to learn about the nuances of your site, because a lot of people don't always know all of the things about their clinical site that we maybe should know. And so this course gives you an opportunity to really explore what that looks like. We set expectations on what your project can and should be. And we also want you to have a project that is realistic and doable in the timeline. So we are really sitting here guiding you so that you're not spinning your wheels trying to do this massive thing that could potentially take you 2 years when you only have a term to implement your project. We talk about your program of study, whether or not, do you need to potentially take a small break? Do you have an upcoming unexpected surgery that you have to take. So we really dive into who are you, what are your needs, and how can we best help you make our program fit into your life, recognizing that we also have guidelines and deadlines that we have to report to our accreditors. And so we're keeping that in mind, but trying to keep you on your journey towards success. So you will complete all of your clinical credentialing requirements. You will complete um, we will talk to you about whether or not your site is one that may potentially need IRB, which is Institutional Review Board, depending upon the kind of site it is. So we really have a process that we talk you through all of that. And here's the thing, none of us know what we don't know. So the quote by Henry Ford, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Like never would some people have dreamed that we could actually have this thing called cars. And so we recognize when people are starting their DNP journey, what you imagine it to be and what it really will be, you don't know. We don't know. It's beyond either one, but we want you to always shoot for the stars. Don't limit yourself. But as you're planning ahead, there are a few things that we do want you to know. Number one, do you have a potential clinical site? You don't have to know your clinical site today. You don't have to know your clinical site tomorrow, but you do need to know what potential site you will use for your DNP project and what their requirements are and what their approval process is, depending upon when you're going to take the first project course, the preparation course, because that is where a lot of people get delayed. They wait until the last minute and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that site didn't work. So you need to try to figure that out. The best place generally for any DNP student with us to do their project is within their current site of employment because you know that site really well. You've already been practicing. You know the leadership. You know the patients. You know the flow of the clinic or the flow of the hospital. Those things all help you to be able to think through the process of what you're going to do with faculty a little bit better than if you just graduated, you just passed boards, you're starting a new job, you're starting the program. You have so many competing foci that it's very difficult for you to be able to focus on all of the elements that you need to focus on just with a project. So you need to take that into consideration as you move forward. So, like I said, transition to APRN practice and onboarding is a challenging thing for even the best of us. So, you want to make sure that you're in a site where you're already comfortable in that APRN role because that is going to give you the most bang for your buck. And then you also want to think about what does your life look like? Are you anticipating any major life events? Do you, did your grandmother or grandparents just move into your house and you've assumed care for a whole nother set of people and now you've got doctor's appointments or um, other things that you need to get through? Do you have a whole bunch of young kids that have you have 5 kids and all 5 of your kids have 5 extracurricular activities? These are all things that we want you to take into account as you are thinking about what your parent looks like. If you're growing your family, what's the timing of that? It is very difficult for DNP students to have an interruption between the time you plan a project and the time you implement the project. So, planning and implementation should always be taken in back to back terms. In fact, I would dare to say pre planning, planning, and implementation, 9 months of your life should be taken in those back to back terms. And it is very difficult if you have some major life interrupter that disrupts the flow. We don't want you to have to go back and retake courses because gaps in your site have changed. So we're all about data-driven changes here, and we want you to look at what that potentially looks like. And then the other thing is to consider how much PTO time do you have at work? Because for some students, I would actually like to say a good bit of our students, They may take off an extra day, especially in implementation, to be able to really look at the data because you don't have time to do that while you're actually practicing. While you're practicing, you're incorporating your project into your practice, but you still need time, the mental time, to think about what it is and still do your assignments. And so taking the time and looking at your schedule becomes vitally important. We have several alumni, and actually, once you get into our program, this could be you. You could be featured on one of our alumni spotlight stories. But the point is that we have alumni doing great things all across the country. They may not have come into our program with some of these goals. Stephanie, I remember Stephanie when she was actually a DNP student in our program, and she did her project at a hospital. But all the things that she learned in the DNP program helped her to reframe her perspective and her thinking, and now has a greater goal of opening up birth centers all across Alabama. So the sky is the limit. Don't let what you come in here with as your experiences be the limiting factor on where you think you can go with your DNP degree, because leadership looks different for all of us. So the distance between who I am and who I want to be is separated only by my actions and words. A lot of us say we want to do things. There are a lot of things that I want to do, but there are also things that I can't do because I don't have time and I'm realistically unable to make time for it in my life. So speaking things and doing things are two different things. We want you to really look at your why and turn your thoughts and your words into actual actions. So it's a DNP. It's a terminal degree. There is no doubt in my mind there will be obstacles. Obstacles happen to all of us every single day. There will be people who doubt you. There will be 100 people who say, "Why are you going back to school to get your DNP? You do not need that DNP." At the end of the day, it's not about those people. It is about you and what you want for your life and your career trajectory. You will make mistakes. We are all human. There is not anybody on this call who can ever say that they have never made a mistake in their life. And that is okay. The mistakes are actually part of the learning and the growing process. So we know absolutely 1,000% that if you work hard, you can achieve your goal, and there are no limits to what you can do with your DNP degree. So it's time for you to come get on our successful bandwagon and join us in our DNP program. So if you have questions about any of the financial aid information, I would encourage you to reach out to financial aid at frontier.edu. And if you have admissions questions, reach out to FNU admissions at frontier.edu. But now I'm going to stop screen sharing and take any other questions you may have. No questions? Dr.
I
Couch?
have a question. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm currently working in a hospital, and I looked through the hospital contract list, and the school is not part of the contract list. So how would I go about, I don't know if you can give me some guidance in trying to make sure that if I can ask or in some ways to figure out how I can um, get the process started or at least look into it.
Perfect. That's actually a great question. Um, my first question back, though, before I can answer your question, is what kind of, is it a large hospital system? Is it a VA? Is it like a Kaiser?
It's
Because
a
all of those things matter.
it's a large enterprise. It's a NYP, but it's a regional campus. So though it's
Okay.
part of a huge enterprise, they kind of work in a silo in a way.
Okay, perfect. So what we do is when you come for DNP bound, um, especially for our in-person bound sessions, we have a session with credentialing. And if you're in a large hospital system, we are now putting together a list and we're trying to get those contracts started earlier in the program so that by the time you get to the DNP 850 project preparation course, that we can already have that contract underway because we know that it can take as little as 4 weeks to get a contract or as much as 1 year to get a contract. So we have now started a system where if we know that you're in one of those systems, we try to start looking into this for you from the back end so that we can work on all of those things.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to invite you all on the homepage is a list of DNP presentations, and they're getting ready to come up. So you can look on that master list, and they're going to occur between weeks 8, 9, and 10 of this term. The calendar's on the site, but that will give you an idea of what you're going to produce by the end of the program. And they're really amazing to take somebody from just a flicker of an idea to something that is publishable and presentable at a conference. And so you'll find many of the topics that you're interested in because there are 60 or so students who are presenting. So you can pick and choose the dates and times that work for you. There's a Zoom link there, and you can just zoom in and listen to their presentation.
Any other questions?
I hope we
Well,
I have a
guys.
quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
go ahead. Oh, ask away. That's what we're here
Uh,
for.
if let's say the site that I have that I'm currently working somehow doesn't pan out, how much of an assistance does the program offer in kind of finding an alternative place?
So we don't actually have a lot of students that actually use the service, but I have had a few. We have another department that works with our MSN clinical placements. But we also try to remember because, like, there are students that even in my head, I'm like, oh, I had this student who did this other project in New York and they had their own independent site. So there's some of that that goes on, and we try to help you. And then we also try to we have a big map called the community map that shows all of the sites that any student at Frontier has ever used for anything. Some of them may have active contracts, some of them may not, but we use that as a starting point to try to help you say, okay, this isn't going to work. But then we also sit back and tell you that, like, if your site of employment isn't going to work, the next place I want you to go and I want you to look is potentially some kind of indigent clinic or some kind of volunteer, like some place where you can volunteer because they really need resources, and the support that you give them for the project can actually help them potentially write a grant for something. Those people are always looking for free labor. So we want you to look there. The next place would be something like an FQHC, because again, they're trying to meet some kind of metrics. And by you doing a DNP project, you can actually help them meet those goals and objectives.
Thank you.
And that's kind of what Dr. Couch and I both do. We are the people who really meet with students for a lot of, oh, well, such and such as my site has questions. Who do I go to? It's generally one of us that are in the meetings with you.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And you can also feel free to reach out if you still have questions after this. You can email me at kara.jefferson@frontier.edu. But we are here. We want all of our students to be successful. And like I said, we have so many different support staff and faculty that our students are generally very successful and go on to do great things. So
I missed the, oh,
go
sorry, I
ahead.
have a
Go ahead.
question. I missed the very beginning because I was having audio Zoom problems. I don't know what's going on. Have you ever, I'm in Oregon, and there's been some programs that have limits, and I don't know, have you had any students from Oregon in your program?
We've had students from all across the country in our
Okay.
program. Um, the only state, but it's even not limited to DNP. At one point in time, our students in New York were worried that, like, oh, I don't know if I can do my DNP. You can. New York doesn't have the restrictions on our DNP program that it has on our MSN program, because you are already, like, in New York, you're already a clinician. It was more of a, oh, you're taking sites from our programs, and it's not, because most people are employed. So we do try to work with you. In Oregon, there have been no, I don't remember a time where we've had student problems in Oregon.
I have
Okay,
students
great.
right now who are in Oregon. So we have a cohort of each faculty takes cohorts through, and I have students in Oregon. So the idea behind your project is that you pick something that you all aren't doing very well within your practice. So it can be in a private practice, it can be in a hospital, in a clinic, it can be any institution, corrections, any place, and you're going to pick one metric or something you guys aren't doing well. And that might be you're not screening for something well, and we need to improve the standard of care response to that. It doesn't have to be initiating a program across all of these facilities. It can just be literally with you and another couple of providers. That's all it would take to address the issues with, are you guys meeting the standard of care for something? It's all evidence-based. We don't ask you to recreate something. We asked you to take something that already works and apply it in your institution. There are toolkits out there from every major organization who has a stakehold in psychiatry or in midwifery. They all have these toolkits to make care better. And so we will focus on improving the care that you give to your patients. And it can be wound care, it could be ostomy care, it could be depression, who knows? The topics are wide. But I don't want you to get overwhelmed by the fact that you have to do this huge project within this massive organization. It can just be in your department.
Yes, how do you bite an elephant? Well, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And that's what we're trying to do. Like, while we want our DNP graduates to change the world, we're also very realistic in that we are taking you through a very specific process from beginning to end, which most people have never done this way. They always tend to come in on the back end of some kind of QI, QA project, but we are taking you from the beginning so that at the end, not only are you more than capable of leading teams and leading anything else, but you know all of the backhand side of everything that you never would have seen otherwise. And so it's really about learning the process, because then you can take that process and then you can go and fix the world and fix all 500 other things that are wrong in your clinic or setting.
So how many of you, when you read a journal article, read the abstract, the problem, the discussion, you're done? What we're teaching you is all the stuff in between. We want to teach you how to get all of that to get to the discussion at the end. And you actually will come out of the program with a publishable document that you're going to be able, especially if you want to go into academia, you're going to need that publication status behind you. So you're going to be able to put that in for publication, right? A podium presentation. They're amazing. By the time you get to the end, you guys are the experts in whatever you're doing.
So I am here. We're all here. Please reach out if you have any other questions. Thank you for giving up almost an hour of your time. I'm going to give you back 10 minutes. So have a great day, and please don't be afraid to reach out if you need anything.